Welcome back to Mike's Monsters. Today we're looking at the awesomely nostalgic release from Super7's TOHO Ultimates line, the new Space Godzilla poster color version. This figure features a colorway inspired by the incredible poster artwork by Noriyoshi Orai. You could also say that it's kind of a throwback to the color scheme of the classic Trendmasters Space Godzilla from the Godzilla Wars line in 1995. Let's start by looking at the packaging. Super7 knocked it out of the park with this one. They're basically absolute masters at creating insanely cool presentations, and this box might be a keeper for me, even for someone like me who usually tosses his boxes. The cracked and crystal-shaped window display is seriously impressive, with the film's poster artwork wrapping around the front and the side. The back includes a brief description of the movie's events, and the top showcases the Ultimates logo, and the bottom has all the legal text and Super7's information. It's a package that screams collector's item, and Super7 should be incredibly proud of what they've delivered here. Now onto the figure itself. I got this bad boy as an awesome gift from my wonderful girlfriend, The Horror Babe Show, and you can check her out with the links in the description below or on the card that's floating on the video right now. I absolutely love this interpretation of Space Godzilla. It takes me right back to Christmas morning in 1995 when I unwrapped a kaiju that I didn't recognize at the time, Space Godzilla, decked out in an awesome blue, green, yellow, and red paint scheme. Those giant white shoulder crystals and crystal spines down his back were completely unforgettable. Little me thought he looked a lot like Super Godzilla from the SNES game that I had been playing almost every day of my childhood. It wasn't until 1999 that I finally saw Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla and realized he didn't have the same vibrant color scheme in the movie as my cool toy, which honestly bummed me out because I adored these colors, but I still really dug Space Godzilla from the movie. That toy made me happy for years, but sadly, I no longer have it. But thankfully, this new Super7 figure satisfies my nostalgia in a big way. It's a much larger scale with more articulation and incredible detail. As you can see here, Space Godzilla barely fits on my turntable and comes with an absolutely massive tail. Let's jump in and take a closer look at his articulation, sculpted details, and accessories included with this amazing release. Space Godzilla stands at an impressive 8.5 inches tall and stretches over 15 inches long. Definitely a big and hefty figure. The vibrant colors are truly stunning in person, and honestly, I'm not sure the camera does them full justice. The blue base with green and yellow red accents is striking, while the white pops on the shoulder crystals, fingernails, toenails, teeth, and crystal spines that really tie everything together. And those spines run all the way from the top of his head to the very tip of his tail, giving this figure an incredibly dynamic presence. Space Godzilla's design is just super cool in my opinion. This figure isn't just big, it's beefy too. Now let's dive into the articulation and see how Space Godzilla moves. The head is on a ball joint, allowing it to look up and down quite well, and swivel 360 degrees. It doesn't have the most range of motion though in the head. The neck also has some nice movement, letting it tilt up and down a bit and twist side to side for some more expressive poses, but that area doesn't have a ton of movement as well either. It can rotate a full 360 as well, but you gotta be careful with these rotations, especially in the neck and spines. They can rub up against the base of the shoulder crystals if you're not too cautious. At the waist/torso area, there's a bit of rotation, though the back crystal spines can collide if you twist them too far. Be mindful here, there's potential to scratch the white paint on those spines. The range of motion is limited, and while I couldn't find any ab crunch in my figure, it does twist side to side pretty decently. The arms have a swivel at the shoulders just below the shoulder crystals, allowing for a full 360 degree rotation. However, as with the neck and torso, you'll want to be patient and careful while moving the arms to avoid scratching the paint or breaking anything. The elbows offer a solid bend at about 90 degrees, maybe a little bit more, and feature a swivel that can rotate 360 degrees at the forearm. The wrists have a hinge for bending and can also rotate fully 360 as well, giving you plenty of posing options. Moving down to the legs, the hips have some good movement and can rotate a full 360 degrees, though I didn't want to push them to their limits on mine. The knees have a decent bend, but thanks to Space Godzilla's Heisei Thunder Thighs, the range isn't huge. My right knee was a bit stiff at first, but after using a hairdryer for some heat treatment, it loosened up and now moves much better. The left knee didn't have any issues out of the box. Finally, The ankles have a slight rocker for tilting the feet at different angles, along with a hinge that provides a nice bend. These features add just enough flexibility for a variety of grounded or dynamic poses. When connecting the tail to the base of Space Godzilla's body, I needed to use some hairdryer heat treatment on the joint and socket to fully attach it. Thankfully, it was much easier than attaching the tail of my Ultimates -1 charging version, which felt like one slip and I could have sliced my entire hand clean off with one of those extremely sharp spines. While Space Godzilla still required some heat treatment, it was far less intense compared to the -1 figure. Since I'm still pretty new to the TOHO Ultimates line, the experience of messing around with this figure helped me better understand the recent criticisms of the tails in earlier TOHO Ultimates figure releases. Moving from my first TOHO Ultimates figure, the -1 charging version, to this one was kind of eye-opening. There is clearly new engineering in the -1 compared to Space Godzilla and the earlier figures. While Space Godzilla has segmented joints for twisting and posing, the range of motion isn't as dynamic. The tail can rotate 360 degrees at each segment, and careful positioning you can give it some more flexibility for some side poses, but it doesn't hold an upward or tightly curled position all that well. It really can't curl all that much actually at all. That said, this isn't a deal breaker for me. Super 7 is consistently improving their sculpts and engineering with each release, and since this figure is a simple repaint of the earlier TOHO Ultimate Space Godzilla, it's no surprise that it moves identically to that version. If you've watched or read any of the reviews of the original release, you'll know exactly what to expect here, or if you own that version. Now, let's take a look at the alternate hands included with Space Godzilla. Straight out of the box, he comes with closed fists attached to his arms. The set also includes two additional pairs, one with a grabbing fighting style pose, and another with neutral open hands. Personally, I think the grabby are my favorite, and they add so much character to the figure. It's also cool that you can mix and match and have a bunch of different hand poses if you want. Swapping the hands was super easy for me, and the hinges at the wrist offer a great range of motion. However, I did notice that the left hand socket on mine isn't as tight as the right hand. The left hand can pop out pretty easily with very little force, but they still stay in place without any real issues. It's not a major problem, but just something worth noting. I'm not sure if it's across the board. Now let's take a look at the alternate head sculpts. If you watched my -1 video, you'll remember the trouble I had swapping the heads without heat treatment. Thankfully, this figure was much easier to work with. I still had to use a little hairdryer heat on Space Godzilla, but nowhere near as much as the -1. Plus, the -1 was extremely stabby with those spikes on the back of his head. Space Godzilla's spikes, though plentiful, didn't feel quite as stabby to me this time though. The figure comes with a neutral closed mouth head attached, as well as a second head featuring a roaring expression. The roaring head is my personal favorite, and I'll probably display him with that one most of the time. I love the crystal crest and the paint application on the forehead, which transitions beautifully from green to yellow then to red. The red eyes also look amazing, and the teeth and tongue are painted with great attention to detail. Super 7 absolutely nailed it with the sculpts and paint applications on this guy. This figure truly feels like a scaled up, more articulated version of the Space Godzilla toy I cherished as a kid. Looking closer at the sculpt and details on the body, it's worth noting that the upper arms and shoulder crystals appear to be made out of a softer, but still hard rubber material. I could be wrong, but it definitely feels different from the plastic used for the articulated parts. This material spans from the top of the arms to the sides of the neck, all the way to the tips of the shoulder crystals. The sculpting throughout the entire figure is phenomenal, with intricate details that really stand out. While this is a very slightly stylized version of Space Godzilla, it closely resembles his film appearance, enhanced by the vibrant poster color scheme. The original release with the film-accurate colors also looked fantastic, but this version feels uniquely nostalgic. The white crystals along the back, tail, and even the tip of the tail at the Thagomizer are a striking highlight. Overall, this is just a really awesome figure in my opinion. But now let's move on to some size comparisons. Starting off, we have the SH Monster Arts Godzilla 1989 Exclusive Edition, released at San Diego Comic-Con this year in 2024. As you can see, Space Godzilla towers over him. Next, we have the 2023 Soul of Chogokin Kiryu figure. While Kiryu stands a little bit taller than Space Godzilla, he's an absolute unit and one of the largest figures in my collection. Following that, we have the Banpresto Super Deformed Godzilla Evolved from Godzilla Kong the New Empire, and this little chunky guy is quite fun. After that, there's the Mezco Destroy All Monsters Godzilla from the 5 Points line. And to bring in another Ultimates Godzilla figure, we have the -1 charging version, which is about the same height as Space Godzilla. These Ultimates figures are seriously beefy and pack incredible shelf presence. Next up is the giant Godzilla Evolved figure from Playmates Toys from their GXK line. He's so massive he doesn't even fit in the frame that I have set up here. Finally, let's wrap things up with some smaller Space Godzilla collectibles in my collection. We've got a nano block Space Godzilla and a tiny finger puppet of him using his telekinesis to raise Godzilla off the ground. These are very tiny little guys, and I love them. Now let's do some toy photography with this crystal guy. Starting off, let's take Space Godzilla out to my apartment patio in the sunlight for some of my regular water spray photos. I put Space G in a menacing pose, and I added a red pop of accent color to his side using a Ulanzi LED video light, and then I sprayed away. The sun wasn't shining as bright as I'd hoped for while I was shooting this, since it was a little overcast here in Los Angeles during the shoot. Sometimes I just have to work with what I get at this time of the year in the winter here. I always love making these kind of photos since they give me a bit of everything with natural light to some controlled light for a very specific look in the image. I'm pretty happy with how this one turned out. Now this one's a little different. I had the idea to use my fiber optic lamp that emits a lot of different colors as a background for Space Godzilla. So I took a bunch of different photos with the light in different positions and then combined them all together in Photoshop for this final result. It was fun figuring this one out and how to execute the shot. I tried this one out over multiple days because I felt like I just didn't get it right on my first try. But after the second attempt, I think it came out pretty awesome, if I do say so myself. Next up, I wanted to get a really moody fog shot using my Ulanzi Film Fog Ace, along with the same video light that I used outside. I set the light to a few different colors and snapped a few different photos, all combining them in Photoshop for one individual photo for a pretty interesting final shot. And last but not least, I wanted to try my hand at sort of a recreation of the Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla poster by Orion, while making it my own and not doing an exact copy. I took inspiration from the posing and lighting and did my own kind of thing with a Star Galaxy background displayed on my TV. I used one of my Yuji Sakai mini diorama sets that featured Godzilla knocking over the building from Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla as the prop for the building piece, along with some of the crystals on the base. I'm pretty happy with this one. What do you think? And which was your favorite shot of the bunch? I really can't get over how much I love this figure. It's even made me consider hunting down the old Trendmasters Space Godzilla to display next to him on my shelf, since the one I had many years ago has been lost to time. If I had any critiques, it would echo some of the same points that I made in my -1 video. Hinge jaws would be a welcome addition, so we don't have to swap heads. And for these older style Toho Ultimates, updating the tail articulation for better posing would be a fantastic improvement. It would have also been great to have some of those crystal accessories included, like the ones that came with the original Space Godzilla release. But honestly, none of that diminishes how special this figure feels to me. Opening them up as a gift on Christmas hit me right in the feels. I even got a little teary-eyed because it brought me back to some of the happiest days of my childhood, moments that are often quite hard to recapture as an adult. This figure hit all the right nostalgia points in my brain. Life as an adult can be pretty tough, and I'm sure many of us wish we could go back to those carefree days of being a kid playing with our favorite Godzilla toys. Collecting these figures helps me stay connected to that part of myself. So when I hear folks say that toys like this from brands like Super7 or others have no value or aren't good, I can't help but wonder if these people are just too jaded or cynical to enjoy anything. Why even collect if you're going to nitpick these figures so heavily? This figure did exactly what it was meant to do for me. It brought me joy, nostalgia, and a connection to my childhood in a way that I didn't think was possible. No toy is perfect, and I pointed out the minor flaws, like the tail and looser wrist socket, but those didn't crush my overall enjoyment of this release. I wish more collectors, especially those in the Godzilla community, would ease up a little bit and let themselves enjoy the good in these releases instead of constantly chasing perfection or pushing negative narratives. As for me, I'll just focus on the toys that I love, and I truly love this figure. A massive thank you to the Super7 team for bringing this release to life, especially to Kyle Wadaga for pushing to make this specific figure happen. It hit me right in the feels, and I hope you all continue creating releases like this. I'd love to even see more fun colorways like this one in the future. The Super7 Toho Ultimates Space Godzilla poster color version is priced at around $85 before shipping, and is currently available on Super7's website. Keep in mind that he won't be around forever, so if you're interested, Now is the time to grab him. If you'd like to support the channel, feel free to use my Super7 link that's in the description below to pick him up. I get a small kickback for any purchases made through it, but no pressure though. He's available from other online figure retailers if you prefer. But act fast so you don't miss out on him. What do you think of this figure, and did you pick him up, or do you own the original release with the crystal accessories? And what TOHO Ultimates figures would you like to see Super7 tackle in the future? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd really love to hear them. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel, or maybe sharing it with a friend who may be considering picking this figure up. And if you'd like to keep up to date with all of my toy photography or connect with me on social media, all my links are listed in the description below. Thank you so much for watching Mike's Monsters. I really appreciate having you here, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.